Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Guest List podcast. I'm Steve Guest, your host, and I am genuinely really excited to chat and get to know today's guest. Before we get started, a bit of an introduction as to why I've started this podcast, and it's really off the back of my book Top Biller and the platform that's given me to associate with so many recruiters globally now, which is a great group, great community. And the podcast has really been brought out of looking to further that journey, inspire, empower, and engage more recruiters along their journey, and hopefully add that value so that you can all improve your journeys and careers as well. A couple of weeks ago, I put a post out on LinkedIn and asked my network who they'd like to listen to, who they feel is very influential within the market. And somebody that can come in and add value that you'd like to listen to about high performance, top billing recruiters, motivational leaders, inspirational coaches and mentors within recruitment. And this person's name continually popped up. And I'm not surprised at all, having followed this person's content for a number of years now. So I am delighted to have Greg Savage with me today. Welcome onto the show, Greg.
Thank you, Steve. I'm just as delighted to be here. So thank you for inviting me on your show.
Good stuff. Well, just as a kind of short bio for those of you that don't know Greg, so some of the accolades over the years, a wealth of recruitment and knowledge and experience in the field. Recognition of contribution to the Australian recruitment industry, Greg was made an honorary life member of the Recruitment and Consultant Services Association in 2004. 2011, awarded special commendation by the RCSA for outstanding contribution to the recruitment industry, and was named the most influential Australian business person on Twitter in 2016, and the most influential recruiter in Australia in the past 60 years in 2015. 2018, Greg was inducted into the Recruiter International Hall of Fame. In November 2018, he was named one of LinkedIn's top voices, an early adopter of social media for recruiting. Some of you will follow Greg's industry blog, The Savage Truth, which is also the name of his book that as an Amazon bestseller in its category has now sold over 7,000 copies to date. Greg now currently acts as a non-exec director for 12 recruitment and HR tech companies, Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, and provides consulting, advisory and training services to the recruitment professional services and social media companies across the world. What an introduction.
Well, actually, it's a very overblown, exaggerated introduction, Steve, but I shouldn't be surprised seeing as I wrote it for you myself. So thank you for reading that out. I should also just correct you. It's not your fault. That book sold 10,000 copies now. So I must up, wherever you got that from, probably from me, I must update. So, yeah.
My word. That is a fair few accolades, isn't it? And it's, as I say, I'm over the moon to get you onto the show today.
Now, look, if you hang around long enough in the industry and you play with a relatively straight bat, you hope that at the end of the day, some people are going to say you got a few things right. So, yeah, I'm very proud of not so much of those things. You know, you're grateful for anyone to recognize you, but really the businesses I've been involved in, the people I've been involved in has been the fun. And there's a lot of good stories there. We may even tell some of them today.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, one of the main reasons that I've got you on to talk today really is to talk about high performance, to talk about how or what you feel separates those kind of average recruiters, those average performers, and how they get to being that high performing billing consultant. What are the actual keys to the success?
You know, a lot of times people ask me that question. I even get quite often, funnily enough, on LinkedIn and other places, someone saying, "Hey, can you tell me the one key thing I have to do or be to be a great recruiter?" And I understand the question, but it's a farcical question, because it's like me asking you, what's the one thing you have to do or be to be a great parent? Or what's the one thing that makes a great footballer? There is no one thing. Yeah. It's a complicated, it's a nuanced cocktail of different things. And so I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to answer it by telling you that there's four main areas if you want to understand what makes a great recruiter. And if you are a recruiter and you want to be one, a great one, I mean, then you've got to look at yourself in these 4 ways. And the first is, and I'll list them, and then I'll just elaborate on them, Steve, and then you can ask me questions. The first is intrinsic attributes. You know, it's like a footballer. You can do anything you like to get better, but if you don't have the raw innate ability, you're only going to go so far. So, and I'll come back to that. The second is attitude and mindset. There is definitely a different attitude and mindset of supremely successful recruiters. And by the way, I was a good recruiter, pretty good. You probably would have hired me, but I think I've worked with far better recruiters, thousands, literally. I mean, I've been running recruitment businesses for 40 years. And so you get to know a lot of people in that period of time. And so I've studied this, actually try to dissect it. The question you ask, intrinsic attributes, attitude and mindset. And then there's the learned skills, right? So then you can have you can have the intrinsic attributes. I'll elaborate. You can have the right attitude, but then you've got to learn certain skills. And then the final thing is the process and the way to get things done. So just to elaborate on those, when I talk about intrinsic attributes, I'm talking about things like, you know, often you hear people say, and I've even said it, although I've changed my mind, recruitment builds character. And yes, of course, experience builds character. But I think what recruitment really does, it reveals character, Steve. You will see the way people behave in recruitment, them unearthing their true characters. So resilience, for example, of course you can build up and you can toughen up, but resilience is a key intrinsic attribute. And if people don't have that in a job like this, for the reasons you and I and anyone listening would know, then you're not going to succeed. So resilience is an example of intrinsic attributes. Stamina and work ethic, right? So, you know, I don't believe that the best performing recruiters work the longest hours, but there is no doubt that, you know, if this job was easy, all the stupid and lazy people would be rich, Steve, and they're not. It's hard, right? Yeah. It's hard work. So you need that. You need, believe it or not, a word that you don't often hear on a job spec for a recruiter. Empathy, I think, is an intrinsic attribute of a long-term successful recruiter. They are empathetic to the fact that they're dealing still with human beings, with the candidate and the client, and that allows them to become highly skilled in influencing, which I'll come back to later. So those are some of the intrinsic attributes. There are many others, but we've only got a limited time. So that's component number one of this rich cocktail. Number two is attitude and mindset. And great recruiters take a long-term view. You know, there's plenty of shooting stars in our industry. My God, I mean, the guy cut my hair the other day. He said, yeah, I was a recruiter. Everyone's been a fucking recruiter at some point, right? But if you're going to have a long-term success, you've got to take a long-term view. And so you take care of things like customer service, treating people with integrity, investing in building relationships. So great recruiters, there's plenty of high billers, you know, and show-offy high billers. And yet 3 years later, they're actually out of the industry or they've moved into, you know, something else. So building credibility, right? A recruiter who actually has the ability to build credibility and is conscious of that. So that's things like doing what you say you're going to do, right? Getting back to people when you say you're going to get back to them. Not building a short list of 2 great candidates and dropping in 2 shitty ones under the misguided belief that that's going to make the other 2 look better. Because the client's going to look at it and go, look, he's going to see through it, or go, the guy didn't understand it. He flicked 2 that were right and the other 2 were hopeless. So, you know, you crashed your credibility. So the main thing under attitude and mindset, because of course we can talk for an hour about these things, is what a little term I called recruiter equity. So this is key. I'm going to spend a few minutes on this. Great recruiters, high performers have recruiter equity. Now, the word equity means ownership. It means a share of ownership. And great recruiters work with their clients and their candidates so that clients and candidates give them a share of ownership in solving the problem. Problem is, I want a job or I want a job filled. I'll give you an example of no equity. If a client gives a job to a recruiter, you or me, and he gives it to us, he emails us a job description, he's clearly given it to 4 other recruiters, doesn't return our calls. That client is not giving us any share of solving the problem. They're saying, little doggy, chase the bone on the beach along with the other little doggies. And the one that comes back with the bone, I'll pay, right? So there's no equity. But where recruiters have a belief in building their own equity, they actually believe, top performers actually believe that they add value. They actually believe that they know more than their clients about recruitment. Now, you might say, well, of course, there's plenty of people who kowtow to their clients, and you've actually got the finance director telling the recruiter how to run the recruitment process. That's like the lunatic running the bus, driving the bus. No disrespect to the finance director, but the finance director is good at finance. The recruiter goes into the meeting, not with arrogance or into the conversation, not with hubris, but with a mindset, a bearing, an ethos of I am here to help, I have value. And so therefore they get equity in the process. So signs of you having equity in the process is the client gives you the job exclusively. The client takes your advice. The client interviews the candidates you refer. The client, as I say, takes your advice on things like salaries and speed and how to frame the conversation. The client returns your phone calls. The client gives you a debrief on every candidate. When that's happening, which actually is rare, you've got equity. So great recruiters build what I call recruiter equity, and it stems from an absolute basic platform of self-belief. Not an arrogant, I'm the greatest self-belief, but a belief that I can help this candidate, I can help this client. So you've got intrinsic attributes, you've got attitudes and mindset, then you've got learned skills, Steve. And the basic fundamental one upon which everything is built is influencing skills. Great recruiters have influencing skills. There are plenty of recruiters in your city, wherever you are, and in my city, which is not Sydney. That is my city behind me, but that's a photograph. I'm in Brisbane. And whether it be Brisbane, Sydney, or London, wherever you are, most recruiters in the boom, and we had a boom, I don't know whether people realize this, from about 2010 when the that crisis was over, up to about 2019, we had a boom, 10 years of the biggest boom that I've been through in 40 years. And what it led to was a lot of recruiters could make money by screening, shortlisting, matching, setting up interviews, and occasionally they made a placement. There was actually no consulting at all. It was resume spamming at pace. That's what it was. And you could make money doing that, and you won't be doing that going forward. But the great recruiters have influencing skills, and that goes through everything. And when I say influencing, it's actually, I use the word influencing because I actually prefer the word selling. But people think the word selling is hard sell. It's not. I'm selling to you right now. Anyone who's watching this, I'm selling my view of recruiting. Right? That's all I'm doing, trying to influence you to believe that, because I hope that people will see a better way to do it. So qualifying a job order is which plenty of recruiters, Steve, you know this, will take a job order either very briefly over the phone or actually get it emailed to them, and then they'll start looking for candidates. For God's sake, how could you dare start looking for candidates until no job order in the history of recruitment ever was matched by a person or filled by a person who actually matched that job description, right? Not 100%, never. And in actual fact, a good recruiter won't go away and recruit that job description. They will consult to the client, as you know, talk through salary, talk through qualifications, what are the priorities, blah, 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 qualify the job order. Selling exclusivity is an influence. You got to influence the client to see that giving me the job order exclusively is in the client's interest, right? Influence a candidate to even go to a job, to consider it. Understanding a candidate's real motivation. Most recruiters interview a candidate for skills, qualifications, and history. That's the easy part, right? That's what a machine can almost do, not quite. But what a machine can't do is understand a candidate's real motivation. Because here's a secret. I want to tell your listeners about this, Steve. They won't know this. Candidates lie. Big secret, right? But they don't lie. They don't lie, a big lie, black lie. Some do. Some say, oh, I used to work for that company. Actually, they were in jail. There's that kind of candidate. It's very rare. Mostly they lie about things like, I say to you, Steve, why are you looking to change jobs? Every recruiter asks that of a permanent candidate. And then the candidate says, career advancement. And the recruiter writes that down. That's not true. Sometimes it's true. Often it's not. Often when you dig and you get to the bottom of it, the real reason the person wants to change jobs so they can work closer to home, so they can get home by 5 o'clock, so they can coach their kids' football team, which for my mind is a brilliant reason. The point is, as a recruiter, I don't care the reason. I just need to know the reason, because then I can make a match. So the kind of things that I'm talking about, the language I like to use is a great recruiter knows how to architect the deal. That's the phrase I use. And when I say architect, because that phrase means planning and building and creating, right? And that's a recruiter's real job. Our value is not in matching. Machines can do that. It's not in referring. It's not in setting up interviews. It's part of it. It's not in taking references. Even that's been automated. It's in influencing. It's in creating great outcomes. And that's what we should be coaching our recruiters on. And that's what I spent a lifetime coaching recruiters on. It's probably one of the reasons that, and I've had some success in building recruitment businesses. And, you know, somebody told me the other day that they counted up 41 recruitment companies that are owned by people who used to work for me. I, of course, like to take credit for that. Those people will say, you had fuck all to do with it. But it doesn't matter. I like to think that there's been some sort of rubbing off of learning from all my mistakes and hopefully learning from some of these things. So it's summed up like this. Great recruiters have learned the skills to influence the outcomes of the moments of truth in recruitment. Write that down if anyone is going to listen to this. The moments of truth in recruitment are those moments where there's an interaction between client and recruiter or candidate and recruiter, which the recruiter can influence the outcome for the greater good. So I'm talking to a candidate about a job. The candidate says, I've never heard of that company. I don't think I'll go for the interview. Average recruiter goes, oh, I'll try and find you something else. Great recruiter says, well, haha, just a minute. Let me tell you a bit more. I've placed 3 people there, and they've all done it, and it's got to be true, but they sell, and then they get the candidate to go begrudgingly. He goes, he loves it. He gets the job. I made that happen. That's the value, right? That's a moment of truth. Taking the job order is the moment of truth. Debriefing the candidate after they've been on an interview. So I was in I spent all my life in recruitment companies. I hover around. I don't even own those companies anymore. I just sort of hover around. And I sit amongst the consultants, and I saw a consultant. She was an experienced consultant, and she took a call. And this was, okay, it was a few months. It was before COVID, actually. But all my examples, I say, it happened recently. This was actually a little bit ago. And I said, and she said to the guy, and he was giving her feedback. And she said, so the interview went well? Yes. And who did you see? And then she said, look, Bob, I'm sorry to do this to you. I'm so flat out. Just email me your feedback. Sweet Jesus. Yeah. I sat down with her after. It was nothing to do with me. I sat down and said, why did you do that? And to her credit, I said, that is your moment of truth. You want to hear the tone of his voice. You want to be asking, how long were you there? Was money raised as a topic? Who did you see? You don't know who he saw. You sent him to get interviewed by Bob Smith, but he may have seen 3 other people. Did they offer it to him? Did he like the people? Is there anything? Would he accept it? At what salary? I mean, you're pre-closing. This is not new, but it seems as though most recruiters lack it, and great recruiters manage those moments of truth. So, Steve, believe it or not, I've only given you 3 so far: intrinsic attributes, attitudes and mindset, learned skills, and the last one is the process. And the process, what I mean by that is, and I'm going to give you the secret formula to recruiting success and what great recruiters always do, even if they couldn't articulate it the way I am going to. Great recruiters work close to the money. And people get offended when I say that. Oh, it's not all about money. I know it's not all about money, but money is our scorecard. It's not the best scorecard, but in this business, if you haven't created the outcome we want, which is not money, people getting jobs. So that's a scorecard. It's like my son's playing cricket. They come home and say, I batted really well. So how many runs do you make? 6, but I was stylish. I don't care. You've got to make some runs, mate. That's a scorecard. I've never won Father of the Year so far. But the thing is, we've got to get people working close to the money. And great recruiters, they work, for example, on the most fillable jobs, right? I was in a training session the other day, yesterday, the day before. Spoke to a recruiter. He tells me he's got 20 jobs. He's in healthcare. He's handling 20 jobs. And Greg, how can I make sure I get more jobs? He says. I say, well, hold on. How many of those jobs do you fill in an average month? He told me 3. I said, mate, you don't need any more jobs. You actually need better jobs. You need to work out how to triage those jobs. And triage means prioritize. You need to work on the most fillable. And that's taking the job order, understanding the client's point of pain. We want clients in pain. We want clients to say, I'm desperate. It's causing me stress. Now, that's the jobs you work on. And the jobs where the salaries are appropriate and the expectations. And the other thing is to working on candidates who are not only going to get offers. That's the first thing. That's the easy part. You've got to work with candidates who are going to accept offers. That's what people don't understand. I mean, we don't get paid for getting people offers. We get paid for people accepting offers. And for that means great recruiters, they work very close to the money. They work with the job orders that are fillable. They work with the candidates who are placeable. And candidates who are placeable have 2 things. They have the ability, skills, appearance, and communication skills to get job offers, but they also have the motivation to not tactic, they have the motivation to accept them at a reasonable salary. And so I'll finish off before, because you probably got some questions and I probably need to take a breath. Here's the magic formula, right? And I've been a recruiter for a long time. I've worked with the best recruiters, many better than me. But I've also managed recruiters for a long time. And whenever I found a recruiter going off course, in other words, a high performer becoming average, or an average person with all the signs of being great, never being good, or a whole office going off, not hitting their numbers and going off course, you can find it in this formula. And the formula is this: success in recruitment. Great recruiters, they have high activity. They do high numbers of the right activities. Here's the thing: you don't do enough stuff in this business, you lose. And we know about KPIs and micromanaging and all that, but the problem with KPIs is they in themselves are not a problem. The problem is the way they're implemented by management that don't have a clue. So high activity, it's no different to football. If I take one shot at goal in a game, the only possible outcome, if everything goes my way, if the god of football smiles on me, is I could score one goal, right? If I take 10 shots at goal, my likelihood of scoring goes up, but activity is not enough. If those shots all hit the corner flag, I'm not going to score any goals. So the formula is activity times quality. And related to recruitment, we want you to make calls of the key things, whatever they are. Interview people, go on client visits, get resumes in front of clients, get people being interviewed, which is the golden metric, 2 people sitting together. If it's permanent recruitment, that's the golden metric. We want more of those. But it's quality. It has to be quality candidates sitting opposite the right client. And I've got to have done quality pre-briefing on both sides and all those things. So it's activity, quality. And the third thing is target market. I've got to do high activity. I've got to do high quality of those activities. I've got to do it with the right people. So even if I interview brilliantly and I interview 12 people a week, if I'm interviewing the wrong people who don't have the skills that people will hire, I'm not going to be successful. And I might do 10 client visits a week. Remember those things, Steve? Client visits? We can do them in Australia again. So I can do 10 client visits a week, and I can do a brilliant client visit. But if I'm interviewing 2-bit companies that haven't hired anyone since 1999, no success. So activity, quality, target market. There's your answer to that's what recruitment boils down to. How's that? I'll have a breath now.
That is an answer. Honestly, there's so much value, so much content in there. And I think certainly in the UK, I'm not sure whether it's the same in Australia. My experience over the last 15 years is good and competent people come into the industry and you interview them and you think they've definitely got something about them. They're going to come in and they're going to do well as a recruiter. But so many people end up failing. So many people don't quite make the mark. Why do you think that is? Is it just it's so complex that people struggle to kind of keep on top of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. And look, I spent a lot of time in the UK. I lived there for a few years. I recruited there, owned a business there for 10 years. I go over quite often and do speaking tours there in the days that we could travel. But you will notice if you ever looked at my speaking tour schedule, Steve, it coincided with the international rugby matches that the Wallabies or the Springboks were playing. So, it was very carefully
There's
scheduled.
a trend.
I've been to Dublin 4 times to do speeches. Why would you go to Dublin 4 times? Well, there was a test match on. Anyway, and it's a nice place, Dublin. Grand, in fact. Deadly. I hope some of you got some Irish people watching this. But look, the answer to it's a good question. There's a few components to it. First thing is, and I'm being guilty of this, so I'm not. We in this industry are, funnily enough, not particularly good at recruiting. It's a bit of a worry. For ourselves, I mean, we do it rushed. We often. Here's the thing. So I told you, I've been in recruitment a long time. I've had thousands of people working for me or for my companies, managers, etc. How many reference checks do you think I've had in the last 7 or 8 years? How many people have called me? And I'm not hard to find on social. 3, mate. Yeah. 3 people have contacted me to say, what do you think of this guy worked for you for 10 years, right? And tell me what you think of it. This guy worked for you for 3 years and he left. What do you? 3 in 7 years. So, and I often see people who used to work for me getting hired, and I go to myself, that'll last 3 months. Somebody just called me, I would have helped them out. So that's the first thing. We're not good at recruitment. We don't recruit against those core competencies and those intrinsic attributes. We don't look for the skills. I've done this. So look, I've been guilty. I still do. I still get involved in interviewing recruiters for my clients, and we still get it wrong. It's hard, but we get taken away with gloss, with superficial things that, like the way the person looks, and they've been in banking, and they play rugby, and we like that too, so we kind of like them a lot, and they talk our kind of language, so we hire them. But have they got resilience? Do they have empathy? Do they have great listening skills? Are they coachable? They've got a high IQ, but are they coachable? Very different things. So we hire the wrong people. First thing, why people fail. Second thing is why they fail is that they're not given the right support. We are bad in our industry, and I was bad, and I worked at getting better at investing. So I even had somebody say to me, I'm not going to train that person because most of our people don't work out in the first 3 months, so I don't want to waste my time training them. I mean, for fuck's sake, that's like sentencing them to death. I mean, we've got to take the other view, and we hired them. We believe they're going to succeed. We've got to put everything into helping them succeed. And I can talk about, what that needs is, it needs training, it needs coaching, which are different things. It needs constant goal setting and feedback. And you can't just put them in front of a video for an hour and say, hey, there's our top performer. Watch him doing interviews. Listen in and soak it up. I mean, that's all good, but it's not the same as detailed training and assisting people. And you don't measure someone's ability to be a recruiter by their billing in the first 3 months. Somebody asked me yesterday in a board meeting, what number should people have hit for me to say whether they should stay after 3 months? So it's not like you and I could start a recruitment company tomorrow, and after 3 months, you could have made 2 placements. And I could have made none. It does not make you a better recruiter. We know that you can fluke it, right? We know that you can get a bit of luck going your way. So you've got to measure different things, right? Coachability, hitting the targets, the activity targets that you set them, their attitude and their bearing and those sorts of things. So I think that's very much why they're not given support. But usually at the end of the day, even if those things have happened, they tend to fail because of the two key things of everything I said before. They lack the fundamental resilience, and resilience is important. It's a word used in recruitment a lot, but it means something different to me. To most people, it means toughness and a kind of a macho quality to submerge your emotions and just keep on plowing on. That's highly valued in a lot of recruitment companies. That is bullshit. I'm all for emotion in recruitment. I'm all for people hitting in the right time, hitting the desk, hitting their head against the wall, crying. That's fine. I wasn't much of a crier. I was more of a swearer. I would also be out for beers afterwards if I'd need to go walk around the block. That's fine. We want emotion. We want placement dances when people are successful. We want high fives. And this is you're so invested in this thing. The rewards are so high and the failures are so low that emotion is natural. Here's the thing about resilience. It's wasted emotion that fucks people up, right? So wasted emotion means carrying forward negativity to the next conversation. You know people, and I do too, who are 2 weeks later are still talking about the offer that was turned down. I was in an office the other day, and I said to the guy, how's it going? He said, I had 2 offers turned down last week. I said, okay, fine, that was then. How's it going? He said, I've got someone else on the 3rd interview, but that will probably be turned down too, he said. I said, well, with that attitude, it will. It absolutely will. Yeah. So what it is this. True resilience is the ability to have 2 offers turned down, somebody be rude to you, another piece of bad news, but the next conversation you have with client, candidate, or colleague, you are upbeat, you are pumped, and you focused on that person. Yeah. That is resilience. And that is often the cause. Lacking that is often the cause of failure. That and not having the ability to learn influencing skills is the other reason. I said to this group of people I was training yesterday, there's 3 kinds of paths you can go down as a recruiter. One is you can learn all these things that I've explained today and all the rest. We've only scratched the surface, as you know. And you can become a great recruiter, a high-performing recruiter. And if you do that, you will have fun and earn money. And those are only two
Yeah.
reasons to come to work, really. But that's only 10% of people, if that. Right? The other part is you could fail. Find out it's not for you. No, you're not good at it. And then you can leave and you can go and become good at something else. And you might become a Nobel Prize winner in something else. So it's not a crime to fail in recruitment. Just preferably find out early and go and do something else. The third part is the worst. Long-term mediocrity is purgatory. If you are an average recruiter, I don't know how you could do it, because the successes you have don't outweigh all the failures. The positives don't outweigh the negatives. You know, think about it. Most recruiters in your country are filling one job out of 4. That means they're failing 75% of the time. How long would I last as a brain surgeon if I failed 75% of the time? How long would I last as an accountant if my tax returns for my clients were wrong 75%? Put aside the failure rate, it's the self-esteem. So you can't last if you're average. It's better to get out. Now, I'm not trying to encourage lots of people to resign and go and do something. I'd rather you focused on the positives and do the things, you know, work at becoming great, because a lot of recruiters plateau and stall and end up being mediocre. And I can't imagine a worse fate in recruitment, in work anyway. There's a lot of worse fates in life, but in work, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, that leads quite nicely onto my next question. Now, I've worked, mentored, coached lots of recruiters. I've coached very high billing recruiters. And there always comes a time, there's come a time with me as well, where you're really successful. You're the person everyone looks up to. Things are going in the right direction. And you just hit that buffer and you think, either what's next, what happens, how do I get to that next stage? And you do start to plateau. What would you say are the kind of the key turnarounds to get you from a position where you've reached and actually you just need to grab that next level?
Okay, so there's two reasons for what you described, which is quite right. It's very common. One is it's the company's fault, because typically, isn't it ironic that companies spend all their time and training on underperforming people, trying to get them up to the average, and very little time turning their good people into great.
Yeah.
That's where the value is. You know, let me just talk about the finances of a business for a start. You got a guy, I'll talk in Australian terms, right? So you got a guy billing 300,000. They paid about 80,000. So 300,000 is a good little result. The company is profitable on that person. That could be described as a good recruiter. Typically, when someone's doing that, they left in the quarter, give it a kiss on both cheeks, figuratively, and get on with it. Just keep giving me that 300,000. Now I'm going to spend all my time with this 80,000 biller to get him up to 100. Why not spend time on your 300 guy getting him up to 450? Because if you get your 300 guy to 450, it's going to satisfy a lot more clients, a lot more candidates. He's going to earn an extra 50 because he gets about a third, but the company's going to get an extra 100. Meanwhile, he's spending all your time buggerizing around with the guy on 80, whatever I said. So just an example. So they don't put enough time into it to really think about, you know, most recruiters start to wonder whether they should be a manager, and that leads to a very bad thing happening, which is the highest biller becoming the manager, which is often a disaster. Can be, right? But often not. But that's because that recruiter hasn't been put on a program to go from good to great. And so that's the one thing, it's the company's fault. But the second thing is the recruiter's fault, and it's called complacency and hubris. You know, believe your own bullshit. I'm great. I'm billing more than anyone in this place. I can't get any better. And you see it in the behavior of high billers, right? Some of them, they become, you know, prima donnas. And once you get that mindset, you're closed to learning. So in answer to your question, the specific things are great recruiters who go from good to great have a mindset of continuous learning. They are coachable. They'll take advice. And they're open to measurement. So, you know, I used to love dealing with high billing prima donnas because I used to have conversations with them, and well done. It's been a great quarter and a great year, and you build more than everyone else. Hey, but I noticed that your fill rate is you only actually fill 1 job out of 3, which is lower than the average in the company, which is a bit weird, isn't it? That's a bit disappointing. Imagine that. You're in the lowest quartile of that. What can we do about it? I'm not filling 1 out of 3. Well, you are. Here's the stat. All right. So now then get a bit more positive. Now, you know, if you could fill that from 1 out of 3 to 2 out of 4, you're going to bill an extra $100,000 a year. You realize that. Well, what can I do about it, Greg? Well, let's teach you some stuff about exclusivity and prioritizing your job. So here's some goals. Now that guy, top performer, he's still got his cred in the company, but he's also got this goal, which has now re-enthused him, partially because he wants to prove me wrong or whatever, but mostly because he wants to get better, right? And he's got a goal. So measurability and goal setting. Let me improve. Okay, now hold on. You did well, mate, but have a look at this. Your client's the Commonwealth Bank. You billed 50,000 from them last year and 70,000 the year before and 100. You're going backwards in the biggest clients you've got. No, I'm not. Here's the stats. So let's have a program to penetrate that client again. Here's your goal. I want you to turn that 70 to 140. And I'll help you. I'll come with you. I'll give you resources. So constantly goal setting, mentoring, giving people nano degrees. Nice concept, nano degree, right? A nano degree is like a 90-day, 100-day self-taught. I do it all the time, right? So for example, remember when people were talking about blockchain? I don't know, what the fuck is blockchain? So I gave myself the job of a nano degree. I read everything I could about blockchain. I went on webinars. I wasn't interested in it. I phoned up guys in the IT sector and I said, let's have a coffee. I'll buy you a beer. Tell me about it. I did a nano degree. And sure, it didn't make me an expert in blockchain, but after 90 days, no one could fool me about blockchain. I understood it. When I decided I need to go on Instagram, I did a nano degree because I'm not interested in Instagram from a personal point of view much. It's more a branding thing and all the rest of it. Learn about that. AI in recruitment. Everyone talks about it. Often when they talk about AI, it's actually just talking about automation. And but I didn't understand it. I'm still not a tech guy, but I said I'm going to go on a nano degree, which is just self-taught, right? It's just I'm going to do an hour a week learning about this. And I taught this to great recruiters, and I'd say, right, you need to go on a nano degree, and I'm going to help you to sell exclusivity. You need to learn how to brand yourself on LinkedIn. LinkedIn isn't a sourcing platform, it's a branding platform. And if you become good at branding, it'll solve your sourcing. Don't worry about it. So let's do a nano degree in that. And if you've got, so mentorship is also important of helping grow. Mostly leaders in recruitment companies fail their high performers because they leave them alone. What they need to do is to work with them to take them from good to great or great to exceptional through a planned, and the irony is, the biggest outcome of that is longevity. The recruiter stays in the job, they stay in the company, they earn more, they feel more self-esteem, they feel their career's on track. Leave them in the corner and you'll find their billings plateau and sometimes go backwards.
Why do you think that is? Why do we as recruitment businesses kind of do that? Why do we leave our top billers, our highest billers, our best performers? I know we don't want to interrupt the process. We don't want to stop them from billing. But why is it we kind of think, yeah, we should just leave them because they're good as they are. They're doing well. I don't want to rock the boat.
Well, I think there's several reasons. One is that most owners of recruitment companies are not actually good business managers and leaders. Now, that's not a criticism. A lot of people who start recruitment companies were people or are people who were a bit entrepreneurial. They were typically good recruiters and they decided to branch out on their own. And most of them don't have the coaching, the leadership, the mentoring skills. And for those people, they need to go and understand that they're no longer a recruiter. They're an owner and a mentor and a manager, and they've got to improve their leadership skills. And that's another whole topic. So I think that's one of the reasons. And the other one of the reasons is we bow down to the altar of high billings in this industry, and we allow people who bill a lot to get away with a lot of bullshit. Am I right? They're often the ones who are allowed to, the way we behave around here is we turn up on time, except for Betty, because she bills a lot. We in this company always fill in the stuff on our database, but not for John because he bills a lot, right? So they begin to learn that they are some separate species, and that's how you do get prima donna, right? And then what that leads to is that the owner, honestly, truth is, it's fear, Steve. It's fear that if I interfere with the high biller, I'm going to upset them. And they're billing a lot. Let me just leave them alone. They're done. Tick. And that's so wrong. You actually want to get closer to your good people. You want to have higher expectations of them. And so the conversation is, Steve, you're a high biller and we love what you do and we respect you and we value you. But you're a bit of a dick, mate, the way you speak to people. You've got to be setting the example. We don't, this is, hold up the mirror to them. That's a behavioral issue. And you still got to do that. But mostly it's around many managers and owners don't want to sit with a high performer and say to them, you could do better, because they've got some innate fear of rocking the boat, of upsetting them. And why would I do that? They think they're billing 400,000. But really, it's your job is to help them go from, and again, I'm using money as the measure, but when I say go from 400 to 600, if you go from 400 to 600, you will become an exponentially better recruiter. You will fill a higher percentage of your jobs. You'll have better relationships with your clients. You'll get more repeat business. You get more self-esteem, more bottle of wine from happy candidates. And you're much more likely to love your job, which is really what our job is to do. We want people to be successful and love their job. And they go together. If you love your job, you're likely to be successful. If you're successful, you're likely to love your job.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So over the last few years, I've been on my own sort of personal journey, and I'm surrounding myself with mentors, whether that's literary or face-to-face, and coaches, and ensuring that I've got influential people around me. Over your time, who have been perhaps the most influential people, the people that have really inspired you or pushed you to new levels?
It's very rude of me. I'm looking at my phone because I'm in Brisbane, as I said, and I'm meeting someone for a beer, and I definitely don't want to miss that. It's been a long time.
Don't want that.
Okay. So look, I had an unusual, I don't know if it's unusual, but I started in recruitment when I was 21. It was my first job straight from university. It was in January 1980. Hard to believe, because you're looking at a very young looking man, but it was 43 years ago. And I became a manager when I was 27 in London, actually. No, much younger than that. It was only 4 years later, about 24, 25 in London. And there are plenty of people I learned from. But really the two people who have inspired me most, one is my father, who was English, was in the Second World War, was captured at Singapore, spent 3 years in Changi prison of war camp. And he didn't teach me anything about recruitment, of course, but he taught me so much about the way you behave with people, the way you think about yourself. They sent me to, he was a shoe salesman, did very well, but he left school at 15, went to the war, didn't have the advantages that I subsequently had as a result of his efforts and my mother's, but he taught me to play with a straight bat. He taught me that you can win without cheating. He taught me, although he never used these words, he was very good at sort of conveying that saying one thing is fine, doing things is important, and how you make people feel is important. And so I learned a great deal from him. And he died a long time ago. I was about 30, so that's 30 years ago or more. And it's funny how when you're about 15, 16, 17, 18, you really think that your father is out of touch and really doesn't know anything. By the time he gets about 25, you're shocked to realize how clever he's become, and all that means is you've just started to understand that the guy knows what he's talking about. And I've got it now with my own kids, I often say to them, one day you might, whatever. So I think he taught me a lot. He taught me about resilience as well, having been in the army and British Army and in the Second World War, and in a generation who, didn't have a lot. He provided us with a lot more than he had, but he also taught us that, be grateful for what you've got, and you've got to earn what you got, what you get. So that was good. The second guy is a guy called Graham Whelan. If you go to my blog, I wrote a blog years ago, you could search in the sort of search bar, the greatest recruiter I've ever known. That is Graham Whelan. And he was a great recruiter. And if you read the blog, it's interesting. He was great because of his humanity. I mean, he started recruiting in his early 20s in London. We started a business together 10 years later. I had dinner with him last week. Guy's retired this year. No, last year. He retired in March last year. I said, mate, good time. You're 65.
Yeah.
And he was the greatest recruiter I've ever met. He taught me the importance of your reputation. He taught me the importance of empathy. He taught me the importance of delivering on your promises and your commitments. When I say he taught me, just by his behavior, we were colleagues. Actually, he was my boss initially, and then we were colleagues. And he taught me integrity. I mean, I think I had that from my father, but he reinforced that. And he taught me the intrinsic good of what we do, that we actually impact people's lives, and we should never forget that. And so here's another guy. And then I suppose the third one isn't a guy, it's a group of people. It's that next generation of people that I work with now, because I'm a board advisor on the board of 12 recruitment companies. And most of the people I work with are in their 30s or 40s. They've started recruitment businesses. They've built them up to a level, and now they're trying to take it to their next level. And I learn from these people all the time in terms of their work ethic, their ambition, their coachability, and the success that they have. Just they keep me in tune with, the way younger people are thinking. So that's not a person, but it's a group, it's a cohort of people. But to be honest with you, 40 years in recruitment, there are dozens of people I owe something. And I say things today that I heard in an office 30 years ago. Of course, I claim it as my own now, but I heard somebody else say it.
Of course you do.
I picked up a lesson. I mentioned the people that had the biggest impact, but there've been hundreds. Honestly, I'm very grateful. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things of this business. You're learning so much. And that's one of the things I worry about work from home, actually, is that we're going to struggle to learn by osmosis if we're all working from home, which, by the way, I don't think will happen. I mean, I know you've got to do it now, but when we come in this country, there's a big debate, because you can go back to the office now in all our states, pretty much. But most recruitment companies are not asking people to go back, definitely not full time. And I wonder how a 6-month experienced recruiter sitting at home is ever going to make it. So that's another discussion.
Greg, thank you so much. I don't want to get you to a point where you miss that beer, because I know it's well deserved today. So
I won't be missing it, mate. There's no chance.
If people are trying to find you, where's the best place to come and connect with you?
Yeah, thanks. I'd be delighted if people connected to me on LinkedIn. Greg Savage should be easy enough to find. I accept connections from anyone in recruitment or HR or any related area, and I'd love to. I put stuff on LinkedIn every 2 or 3 days, and I hope it's not frivolous. Typically, it's usually to do with your jobs. My blog, The Savage Truth. You've got the guest list, which is great. Savage Truth is better because it's kind of the perfect fucking name for my blog. I've been blogging every week for 15 years. So there's a lot of good material there. And I often put out videos and stuff. And you should get my book, also called The Savage Truth, which you can get from my blog. I'm not trying to plug the book for its own sake. I've given all
It's a good book, though.
Proceeds.
It's a good book.
Yeah, I think it's good. I mean, I've given all the proceeds to charity. I'm not trying to make money out of it. You don't make money out of a book anyway, even if you, as you know, Steve, even if you sell 10,000 copies. But I do think there's some valuable stuff in there, so people should hopefully get it.
Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I know most of your viewers will be in the UK, and to those people, I send you my solidarity. I know how tough it is being in lockdown, but I know you've been much longer. I can tell you from our end, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll say this, I truly believe that tough as it's been, the sun will shine on recruitment again, and we're going to have a great time. And that includes you in due course. So thanks very much, 100%. Steve, for having me on your podcast.
A pleasure. Thank you, Greg.